Good afternoon, and welcome to this celebration of life for Mr. Ed. And it's good to see so many of you out on a cold, icy, whatever weather we're having it is day. I know a lot of you came from a long way, and I'm sure that Ed is appreciating that today, as well as those around here. And hopefully someone said a kind word or two to you since you've been in town today. So just from us here, my name is Jonathan. I'm here at the funeral home with Laura. And we want to thank you as well for coming out and taking time out of your day. Not only this chilly, cold, nasty time of year, but also during this pandemic and so many things going on right now. Taking time out to sit and reflect and remember. And that's what I would challenge you today, is just to, as you're seated here and you hear words from some that are coming to speak to you, just to reflect on what Ed means to you and maybe a special time or a special memory you shared with him. And so today we'll get started. I'll have a word of prayer with us, and then if the first person that wants to speak would like to come up as I finish. Lord, we do thank you for the day today. Thank you for getting everyone here safe that is here. And we just ask that during this service that you speak to all of us and let us know that your hands and your loving arms are around us. So bless our time together today and keep us safe as we go from here. In your name, amen.
I don't know how long I could talk, but Ed loved my kids. He didn't have any kids, and he loved my kids like they were his own. He taught them a lot of things. I remember when we used to live on Flat Lake, he would come over in his old blue truck. I think he come down from Michigan in 1974, and but we met him through Mama, and he took care of my Aunt Gertie, and but he'd come over in the old blue truck and he'd get JT, and JT was so little that he'd stand in the seat beside him, and Ed would have his arm around him, and JT be standing there, and he'd take him back over to his house or take him to McDonald's and get him some food or something. And then as JT got older, you know, they hung out some, and Ed took him fishing, and he took Nick, Edie's son. They went fishing, and they put up hay, and, you know, Ed was all, about laughing and having fun, and, I wrote down just a couple things. I remember he taught Eric to swim when we were in Hawaii. Eric didn't know how, and then when we were in Florida, Ed bought him a little bike with training wheels on it, and he took the training wheels off and pushed Eric down the road, and away Eric went, and I think he wrecked over in Toad's ditch. And I remember I had it was like a wine-colored Lincoln that we bought, and me and Kathy were over at Ed's house, and of course Ed and Eric went and got in a Lincoln and over here on Landis and drove around the cemetery, and me and Kathy's like, oh, this can't be good, because Ed couldn't see, and I didn't know if my car was coming back or not, and Eric was too little to help, but they made it back to the house, so I said no more. And then there was another time JT reminded me of I needed some rocks over around my mailbox, and it's before the fence was put up there between Ed's house and the concrete plant, and Ed got a couple 5-gallon buckets and put them in the back of the truck, and he just drove over through his yard and just made a path to the cemetery, and we got some rocks. So he put them in the bucket, you know, and brought them back home. But he was always doing things to help anybody who could. That might be all. I think I got the point. Oh yeah, I forgot the most important part. He nicknamed everybody, and I don't know all the nephews and I don't know if the nieces had nicknames, but I was Ma. That's how I got my name, Ma. And then Eric was Shag Nasty. And TJ, my grandson, he was Jack Rock. So that's all they, you know, that's what the kids go by. So when Eric was at the hospital the other day, he said, hey Ed, this is Shag Nasty, remember me? So, but that's all, that's all I could think of. My brain's not been working, but thank you all, everybody, for coming. If anybody else wants to come up and say anything silly about him or whatever. Jared, you got any stories? Anybody? Tammy, you want to come tell about the roller coaster?
Yeah, come on.
Larry, you come. Okay. Okay, Larry's go.
Larry's got a story.
Sure, I want to say something about Everly. I've never been able to get used to hearing everybody, his friends call him Lee or Ed. It's always to all of us growing up, he was Everly. I just want to say a couple things about our childhood. My memory's not real good, but a couple things that I do remember pretty good is, I remember when we was pretty young, Dad hired Lee Everly to plow the pasture field. I'm sure Doris remembers that, and some of you others. But he worked his rear off, plowed that whole pasture field, and it was big back then. I don't know why he plowed it. I think he was going to re-sow it or something. That was one of the things that it comes to my mind all the time. Another thing was when Lee was young, I remember him before he was muscular. Lee, I think he was probably in high school, and there was a coach named Mr. Yates. And Lee decided he wanted to build some muscle. So he made him a set of weights out of rocks. I think Dad had them around there for something about this big. He made holes in the center of them and run a pipe through there, and that was what he used for weights. And he worked hard at it, and he went from a little skinny guy like me to very, very muscular, like Shane. And so I remember that. I remember him out in the yard lifting them weights in the evening when he'd come home from school. That was just a couple things I remember about our childhood. Also, I remember first time I was ever out of the mountains. Lee had a little, I think it was a little 50 or 51 Ford car. Y'all remember that one? It was a little blue car, I think, or black. And I think he was moving things back from Ohio. And I went with him. He took me with him. And I remember we had to go across Ohio River at Maysville, Kentucky.
Yeah.
That's before the interstates. And we went up and got all this stuff and brought it back to the mountains. And I think that was our first TV set.
Yeah.
He had a TV set he gave us. But that left good memories. One time I went to Lexington. I don't remember my age. I guess I was in high school, and spent a few days with him. And that was pretty big because I'd never been to a city, and that was an enjoyable thing. And then I don't know where y'all know it or not, but Lee helped me at the farm quite a bit years ago. And one day we was out there. I had one tractor and he had another one, and he could still see some. And we was applying and disking a field. It was about a 20-acre field. And all of a sudden I didn't see him. He was behind me, and I looked back, and all I could see is the front end of the tractor. He went in a hole. and all you see is the front end of the tractor sticking up a little 9M Ford tractor. So I rushed back over there, and he wasn't hurt. Just as he didn't see that hole. He was starting to lose his eyesight. And then one day we was working down there, and he turned around, and I got a shed there and poles, and he turned around and walked right straight into that pole. I tried to not laugh, but it was kind of funny, but I know it hurt. But that was just a few little things that I remember about Lee, and the great heart he had for everybody. Everybody in our whole family loved Lee. And so, but he had a lot of things against him the last few years. But the one thing he had going for him, he had Terry there that loved him and was with him all the time. And but he's in a better place now.
Yeah.
He can see well now. No Parkinson, no dementia.
No more suffering.
And he said, "Pearl, Mom and Dad." And that's a good thing. He's in a better place. So, sorry about that. I just want to share a little bit with you.
That's okay. Thank you, Larry.
That's good, Larry.
Most of you know me. I'm Jill Allen. I am Lee's niece from Ohio, the Cincinnati area. And of course, I go to the annual breeding reunion for 50-some years in a row. And my husband, who was new to the family, would always say, "Okay, let's go through all 12 of the siblings and tell me who's who so I can remember everybody and call them by their name." So we got to Everly, and he said, "What's his real name?" And I said, "Well, it's Edward Lee." And he said, "So I've heard people say Ed, yes, and I've heard people say Lee, and I've heard people say Eddie." He said, "What's Eberly?" But we always called him Edverly, Edverlee, Edverlee. So he says, "Well, who is Edverlee?" "Well, he's the brother with the really nice wavy hair." I said, "Well, that's not very helpful." "Okay, he's the brother who is always very tan." "Well, that's not very helpful either." "He's the brother who seems to always think before he speaks." He says, "Now we're getting somewhere, and now I know who you're talking about." And had the privilege of going to Florida a few years ago. My mom, my sister, and my aunt. So that was Doris, Lee's sister, my sister Jackie, and Sheb Jean. So yeah, there's a sibling named Sheb Jean and a sibling named Jebo. So Everly is really not out of the realm of normal names. And I got to know him a little better. And Terry was there, of course, and we talked about his career and his work experience, which I was not familiar with. So that was very enjoyable. And again, 5 years ago, he could still see a little bit. We took him to a steakhouse and we all enjoyed margaritas, which was really fun. And then 2 years ago, the Ohio ladies went back and saw him in the nursing facility, and we busted him out of there and took him to another place to eat, and he had another margarita. So it was very nice to see him enjoying the monster margarita on those pictures. But one thing that's for certain in looking through those pictures is I have something in common with Edgar Lee. And that is that my husband and I are investing quite a bit of money paying out-of-state tuition for our son to go to the University of Kentucky. And I think that Lee has invested just as much money in UK t-shirts, hats, and sweatshirts because I saw everyone else in those pictures. And I hope UK has a better season next year, Lee. Thank you.
Take my muzzle off so everybody see how handsome I am.
Put it back on.
Talking about Leah helping everybody out, and he's always willing to help. One time I owned a little place in eastern Kentucky, in Morgan County, West Liberty. And I was flooring a bridge, had a big wooden bridge across the creek, and Kevin, Tim, and Lee came down to help me floor the bridge. Tim was wore out, of course, and stuff. And he went up to the cabin and stayed all day, so Lee and Kevin helped me with the bridge. Anyway, we had a neighbor up the road. Every time he came by, he would always catch you up on the current events, whatever's going on at that time. So he stopped that day to tell us. And he said, boys, he got out and he said hello, said, boy, let me tell you, you better watch your livestock and stuff. He says, down in eastern Kentucky, around Lexington, he said the coyotes are killing their stock and everything, so you better watch out. So he left. And Lee looked at me and he said, which one of the Hopkinses is that? So when he left that day, he got ready to leave to go back home. He said, Hoppy, if you're ever down in eastern Kentucky, down around Louisville, you'll stop in and see me. And one more little one I got to tell. Kevin said I shouldn't tell it, but I'm going to anyway. We used to go to the Daytona 500 off. We went 3 or 4 times. And Lee and I went to the bait shop to get some bait. We were going to go fishing. And this lady behind the counter was showing us a bunch of fish they caught. They had some big, nice fish. And she was well endowed. She looked like Polly Darton. But she was showing us big fish and all that. And we got a dozen night crawlers, or a dozen men, whatever we went after. Lee said, yeah, boy, they really are good looking fish. So that's a couple of little funny things I knew about Lee. Rest in peace, brother. We love you.
Hard fodder is bold.
Yeah.
I said it's hard fodder. I don't know where you begin talking about Lee. There's no bad memories, it's all good memories about Lee. He was our hero growing up. He's a lot older than some of us guys. Darryl, cousin Darryl, texted me one day this week talking about how he was our hero. We looked up to him. And I mean, he always had that wavy hair. Man, I thought that was just the coolest thing ever. When I was little. And I don't know if it's yours, Doris, or Mom's. Them little hair things you put in your hair, make your hair wavy.
Oh,
I'd sneak get into
clips.
them. Yeah, and put them in my hair. I wanted my hair wavy like Lee. Man, he was my hero. I wanted to look just like him. And, but like Larry said there, Larry said about size all of it up. Hey, there's no end to what you can say about Lee. It's all good. He's always good for everybody. He loved everybody and always trying to help out. I looked up to him. He had the old 54 Larry's talking about. I remember that. I remember we got out of high school. He was working out there for Orville Van when they built the old garage. You remember that, Larry?
I do.
And me and Dad went out there one day where they was working, and Lee was carrying cement blocks upstairs up to where they built that block. Man, I wish I could be like that. You know? And the 55 Mercury he had, the green 55 Mercury. I still mention that to him just not long ago, and he still remembered that car. And matter of fact, Charlotte's dad, we was down in Florida, we all got together down there just a few years ago, and they got talking about cars, and Charlotte's dad was crazy about cars. And he said he liked to have done like that. So Charlotte's dad got online, got looking for him one. And he thought he was serious about buying one. He probably would have been if he could have drove it, but he just couldn't see the drive. But he really had good memories about the 55 Mercury. And then that's about the time, I guess, he was in Lexington living those years. And he brought back, the first ones we ever saw, I guess, he brought back some movie, 8mm, I guess it was back then, and showed us movies, I guess downtown Lexington, all them Saturday nights, big lights, and we had never seen nothing like that before. Man, we thought that was just Las Vegas back then, you know. And I mean, brought in, and then you mentioned the TV, Larry. That's the first TV we ever had. I still remember it, and I can tell you where it's at right now. It's an old metal TV, an old tan-looking cut with a metal cabinet.
Yeah.
And if we was lucky, we got 3 channels. Snowy. We got that's the first TV we ever had, and that was that about 62, Larry, somewhere along in there.
No, it was before then.
Before that.
Was it before that? I can't remember the
50s,
years.
in the
Maybe
50s.
50. Okay, maybe it's 50.
He worked in
Yeah,
Lexington.
he brought that TV home for us. We had never seen a TV before. And put an old, had an old bicycle wheel we put on top of the roof for an antenna, and we didn't care what it looked like as long as it was TV. And there's just so many memories about Lee. He was always in control of the reunion. He always led the meetings, and he always tried to keep his family together. And there's just so many memories about him. He was always the first one probably come home for the reunion. He always got there early and stayed as long as he could. But like I said, there's just so many memories about him. There's a picture somewhere at home right now. It's on a Saturday night. There's an old black and white picture of all of us at home from Lee down. Doris, you was in it. And Lee was kind of sitting on the couch pouting.
Yeah.
And I always wondered why he had that look on his face. And Dad told him he wanted to go see Anita. And Dad wouldn't even have a pickup. It's on Saturday night. He was stuck at home on Saturday night without a pickup. He looked so sad, that picture. It's the only time I've ever seen him sad, I guess. But that picture's up at home in some of those old pictures. It just, memories like that right there. You know, us kids, we didn't have no heroes. So Lee and Larry, all you older boys was our heroes and our brother-in-laws. Lowell, I hate to say it, you and Neil and Selden, we didn't have no heroes. Especially for TV, we had to create our own. Boy, was we desperate for heroes. No, y'all be good heroes. Us kids would try to fight, and one would say, "I'm gonna be Lowell. I'll be Selden, or I'll be Neil," or something like that. Man, I could just go on and on. I don't know where to stop talking about Lee, because they just know. And the Eberle part, we didn't know. I thought that's his name, E-B-E-R-L-E-E, or it could be U-B-L-E-E. We called it Ubley when we was little. We didn't know it was Edward Lee.
You are.
And then he left home. I think Anita called him Lee. I guess make it short. And then when he married Eva, that's when the Eddie started. I never heard of Eddie before. And then so a lot of them call it Ed, some call it Eddie. I call him Lee for short, but it's still Eberle. That's it. It'll always be Eberle, I guess.
Yeah.
But that's some of the funnest memories I ever had of him. I could probably go on and on and on, but I'll think of something after I sit back down. I'll let Laura get up and tell him if I do. Lee, we love you. We'll see you in heaven. I'm tangled up.
That's good, man.
It's hard to follow it.
Well, I'll take my turn. Boy, talking about Eberle, I don't know, some of you might remember, email first came out. That was his email address was Eberly at
Yeah.
yahoo.com or something like that. I can't remember, but it was Eberle. He's the one that made it. Eberle. So he was used to being called that, that's for sure. But well, I tell you, so many memories. I could sit here all day, but just a couple of things that sticks out. He was always a prankster, you know, and he loved to laugh. Loved UK, of course. But back in 1981, I guess it was, or 82, I started going to Florida. You know, most of y'all know he loved Florida. And had a house down there, and he loved going down there in the wintertime and sitting in the sun. But anyway, we used to go down in February every year. We'd go to the races, go to the Daytona sometimes, go to the dirt track races, and we'd go deep sea fishing and just all kinds of stuff, you know. We just enjoyed being there. Of course, you know, first thing we done when we got there is go to the grocery store and stock up on food for the whole week, you know. We'd cook and eat and laugh and have a good time. But one time we decided to go deep sea fishing, and of course, I've got the same eye problem as Lee did. So anyway, we was out there deep sea fishing, and I could see pretty good back then, and he was probably at my stage right now. But anyway, we were on, I don't know if anybody's been deep sea fishing, but you're kind of out on a big boat and you're standing shoulder to shoulder, and so everybody's got these big old reels in their hands, you know, and you go out there and sometimes you'll wait for 30 minutes and not get a nibble, and then sometimes you can't reel them in fast enough. So we were out there one day and we were kind of aggravated because we weren't getting any bites, and we were on to the captain to take us to a different spot, and so we were just sitting around there, and of course Lee was to my right and my brother Tim was to my left, and I decided to be a little prankster too, Lee. So he was sitting there and his mind was drifting off. He was just looking around. So I just took my pole, reached over there, and he had his, and boy, he thought he got a bite. So he started to reel, and me and Tim just started dying laughing. You know, didn't even realize what we'd done. He said, "I should have known." So anyway, that kind of became a saying that we would do. We'd laugh at each other, you know, and say, "I should have known." Well, one day while we was in Florida there, our brother Tim was in a bad mood, and I don't know, just one of them days when things hadn't been going right or whatever, you know, and he was hungry and he couldn't find anything to eat, and he finally scrounged up some sandwich meat out of the refrigerator, and he found a loaf of bread there. It only had probably 2 or 3 pieces in it, and he was just mad and aggravated, and he got that bread out of that loaf, and he said, "I tell you," he'd already been, you know, fussing about everything, and he said, "I tell you what, this bread is just about stale." And he handed it to Lee. He said, "Feel how stale this is." Well, Lee just grabbed it and just squashed it. And Tim just said, "I should have known." So I tell you, that's just a couple of things that I remember. I tell you, we just had so many good times that, like I said, I could just go on and on, and I'm really gonna miss that.
Yeah.
I miss it already.
Yeah.
I loved him very much, and he loved his family more than anything. But he's in a better place, better off. But anyway, sorry to get off on a bad note there, but I just wanted to share those laughs that we had. Thank you.
Kevin, what if you had a hole in your shirt? You remember that?
I don't remember
You
that.
had a little hole in your t-shirt or something?
If I did,
Yep, you remember what he did?
rip it.
Stick his finger in it.
Oh, yeah, I guess I forgot there was so many things.
I know he did it to him, and you was right there too.
Let them know.
Rip it off.
Is there anyone else that would like to come up and share before we conclude today? I'll have to say I learned more in the last 15 minutes than I've learned in the last 2 years. But I tell you, it's in seeing all that we see and all the people we see and families we deal with. It's brings a smile and warmth to my heart to see a family that loves one another. And that's so apparent through all the words that you all shared and all the good times and all the good memories. And don't let them stop today. You know, keep telling stories about Mr. Everly, as you all call him. You know, because if you think about it, that's how we all know about Jesus, is because of the Bible and people told stories. That's what it's about. So keep telling those stories, keep sharing those stories, and some of the younger ones here that didn't get a chance to really know him like y'all do, share him. Let them know who he is, who he was, and who he is today. And I'm sure he'd be happy when I left my office in there, Kentucky was ahead by 11 over Auburn. I don't know how it turned out, but I could at least share they were ahead the last I knew. So, but is there anybody else that want to share before I think somebody's going to have a closing prayer with us today? Those of you can't see, we got a debate going in the front row.
She's gonna tell about a roller.
Okay, come on up.
I'm Tammy. I'm Terry's sister, and I've known Ed since we were little, when we were kids, and he was always a character, always had something funny to say, and I always loved to hear him laugh. That was like, his laughter would just carry. But we went on several vacations with Terry and Ed, and the one that I guess that Terry wants me to share is when we went to Animal Kingdom at Disney's Animal Kingdom. We told Ed, we were saying, you can ride this, you can ride that, and you know, sometimes he'd say yes, sometimes he'd say no, I'll just sit here and wait. Well, I said, you know, you need to ride the roller coaster, Mount Everest. I said, you're not afraid of a roller coaster, are you? Oh, I like roller coasters. He said, I like it, I'll go. And I said, well, don't worry, Ed, you won't see a thing. Because, you know, he lost his sight, he won't see a thing. Well, there was just 2 seats, so him and Terry were in front of my husband and I. And we go up, I don't know if any of y'all have ever rode Mount Everest before, but you go up this big old hill and you see like what is he called?
Abdominal.
Yeah, whatever he is, the abdominal snowman sticking down. And then the track, it shows like where it broke off. Well, Ed couldn't see that. Terry hadn't rode it before, and she's like, Ed, the track's broke. The track, he's like, what? And Terry's like, the track's broke. And I'm laughing because I know what's gonna happen. But Ed didn't know, Terry didn't know. Well, all of a sudden the track's broke, you just start rolling backwards. And it's a roller coaster, so you're rolling backwards really fast. And Ed's going, oh Lordy, oh Lordy. This poor thing didn't know. We got off of that roller coaster and he's like, Tammy, what did you put me on? He said, I can't trust you again. I just can't trust you again. And so I'd always say anytime, Ed, you want to go on a roller coaster? You want to ride another one? Didn't get him on another one. He learned on that one not to go with me anymore. But he was just so much fun. And I will tell you, and this will choke me up because I love Terry's kids because I'm their aunt. I'm supposed to, but not just because I'm supposed to, because all 3 of them were so wonderful. And Ed loved those kids. He would do anything with them, for them. And like Terry was telling you, he taught Eric how to swim. It's hard to tell what he taught JT how to do when Terry wasn't around. That's, you know, I might not want to know. But he just, what did he
Write
do?
his name in the snow.
Oh, JT ought to get up and tell how he wrote his name in the snow. I don't know if I want to tell that. See, so it's hard to tell what else Ed taught Terry's kids when she wasn't around.
That we don't know.
That we don't know about. So we don't have to share that, I guess, JT. But he was, I know that you all are such a good family and that your parents had to be so wonderful because Ed was. And to hear you all talk and the tales that he would tell about some of you all, I know that your mama and daddy had to be wonderful people, and that they had to have so much love in their hearts for him to have so much in his. And you can just, feel it when you're around you all. So he was a wonderful man. And, like he was saying, keep him alive in your hearts, because that love that he had, he never met a stranger, and he loved everybody, and he loved life. So we lost a good one. If I think of something else, I'll tell y'all later.
So Terry, you have to come up next, because that'll be all three of us. But Uncle Lee always seemed out of touch to me because he was so much older. I can relate more to Kevin and Jeffrey and Tim and Mike because they were just so much closer to our ages growing up. But yeah, Uncle Lee always had a mysterious air about him to me anyway. And I had forgotten that he led the reunions. Mike, I had forgotten all about that until you said that.
Yeah.
Of course, I was running around and still probably pooping in my drawers or something when you did that. So, but I looking back, I certainly do remember that and how he enjoyed it so much, and saying the prayer every year. That was just a privilege to him, I believe, to do that before every meal. But one thing that always stood out, you always knew he was there, even though this is a family full of laughter. You could always hear the laughter in the background, and then of course you can always pick out Doris's voice over everything. But the laughter, but his was just different. It resonated, and you knew it was him when he was laughing. And that will be always in my mind, was that. And he took so much joy in the laughter too, whenever he just let it go. And I know we're supposed to be talking about Uncle Lee, but I gotta tell you, Terry, you're a godsend.
Thank
you. He was happy that you were around.
Oh, yeah.
He wanted for nothing. He'd say it, and you'd make it happen. Thank you on behalf of all of this family here. Thank you so much.
Amen.
We love you just as our family.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
And just because Ed has passed, that does not mean that you need to stop seeing us.
The heifer can still come to the reunion. Or Jeff.
So thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
That's so sweet. Also turn.
Well, Poppy, go tell some more.
Huh?
Yeah, go tell something else.
Doris, ain't you got some tales?
My mind don't last long enough to tell anything. I just wanted to tell everybody I won't have to get up. I can't stand to get up and look at people or everybody looking at me. I forget everything I'm saying.
You looking at your name?
Huh? It's recording it. You should. Well, I just want to tell about the other night. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, we won't laugh at you.
You can laugh all you want to, but you'll be there one of these days. And then.
Take your muzzle off.
Take your muzzle. I don't like to hear that.
They're coming for you, boy.
I know they are. You ever get this off my earring?
All tangled up.
Yeah. But everybody knows that Jill got up and spoke. That's my daughter. And then Jackie, she just spoke.
If I'm not.
Where's the other one?
Is this mine?
Yeah.
Can't see me.
But Jill said last week, said when we found out about it, Jill said, Mom, do you want to go? And I said, yeah, I want to go. But I don't want to see him like that. But I wanted to go real bad because I thought, if he goes, I'll have good memories to know that I did go see him. And I'm so thankful that we did. Of course, Jill drove down here. We talked and never shut up the whole time. Can't even remember coming to Louisville last week. I always love to sightsee. So I can't even remember. We talked so much. One would shut up, the other one would start out. Remember when, and this and that. And get back to Lee, Eberly. Kevin called him Lee. I've never known a time in all the years, cause it's him and then me. I'm the 5th one down. There's 9 boys below me. 7. There's 9 boys in all, isn't there? 7 under me. Mommy said when I got married, she lost her dishwasher. But I have never known Eberly of having a temper. He was always, there was neighbors, uncles, people always want Eberly to come and plow for him when he was big enough. Maybe he's 10 or 12. And Daddy always had an old mule or something. And they'd hire Eberly. They didn't pay him much. Of course, if he paid him $1 to plow somebody's garden, that was big money then. That's back in the 50s. And he was probably tickled to death. I have no idea what he did with it, but that's not my business. But we thought if we found a nickel or a dime or whatever, you know, that, oh boy, we had money. We could go do something. But I have never, of all the times, I never knew. Eberly was just above me. He never tried to boss me. Mom and Daddy go to town. Mom would have to go get a perm every so often before she learned to drive. Daddy took her. And so they'd be gone all day long. Well, Mom, I was the next one down, so Mom would say, now I'm gonna leave you and take care of all the boys. And I thought, oh, here we start. Never heard a word out of Eberly. He was so calm. It was just the best that you would want.
Just like Larry.
You want me to tell about Larry?
I said, just like Larry. No, he's just like Larry.
No, we talking about Lee.
And so when we came down, when Jill and I came down last week, I was hesitant about going into the room because I knew I've been around enough people that's old, and I knew what to expect, but I didn't want to go in there. And I sort of held back, and I thought, I don't know if I can hold back or not the tears that I've got for him. Never heard an ill word out of him. Never heard anybody say that he had a temper or anything. But the other day when we were standing there in his room, they brought his food in. So Jill fed him. And he seemed to eat very much to me for somebody to be, you know, that close. And I said, well, to me that was a good sign. I thought, he's eating so good, more than what I thought with him being that far gone, you know, that he's gonna make it and he's gonna come out of it. And we're gonna go to the reunion. So he ate so good and that made me so happy. So he wanted some ice water. He said, I don't want none of that that's got the thick stuff in it. I want real water and I want plenty of ice in it. So Jill went, I don't know if he was supposed to have any or not. I'm not sure. But she went and got him his ice water with plenty of little chunks of ice in it. And Jill turned it up to his mouth, you know, he was laying back and she pulled his bed up and he would drink water. Jill would feed him water and everything, and that made me feel so happy to see him. And I thought, he's not going anywhere. We're gonna have Eberly for a while. God's seeing that he's gonna take care of him, and we're gonna have him to go to the reunion with us. We have one every year. And so he was eating that ice like a little child would eat ice cream. He just couldn't get it fast enough. And he just, we called it scrunch. I don't know what other people call it, but we was raised up to call it scrunching on that ice. Maybe it's just crunch. I love to hear him crunching on that ice. And he just, like he couldn't get enough of that ice. He said, I am so thirsty. Bring me some without the thickening. And he drank it, I don't know, when we left, I guess he still had maybe a little bit, I can't remember. But I thought, well, you know, let's try him out. I'm gonna give him a test. And I thought, Everly, you remember when you used to plow for people? Yeah. I said, not the neighbors come around, send word or whatever, cause with no phones then. And wanted him to come and plow. Well, he was way down here, you know, he had to hold the handles of the plow way up cause he was so short and little. And so I said, something else I thought about, and I thought, I'll see if he remembers this. And I said, you remember when we used to walk to Isom School? He said, yeah. I said, remember them big old stoves that sat in the back in the corner next to the dividing doors that separated one room from another? And he said, yeah, I remember them. I said, you remember that old big stove? Oh, it was so tall and so big around and everything. He said, yeah, I remember that. I said, you remember, did you ever build a fire? Yeah. Sometimes back then, it seemed like it was last year, but time has flown so much. And he said, I remember going to school before daylight and build a fire. So it'd be hot enough when everybody at school and the teachers got there, the whole room would be warm, and it was. But we walked to school before daylight every morning. Nobody was fearful of anybody. There was nothing to be fearful of. No mean people. The people that's young today don't know what it is to not have a worry.
I move we adjourn.
I moved you be quiet. But anyhow, I said, okay, Everly. I said, you remember going to school and building a fire? You remember milking the cow in the morning and then run with the bucket to the house and run into the bathroom? This was high school. And get cleaned up. And by that time, the bus had already run up by the house, go up to Garner, top of the mountain, pick up kids and go all the way back out past ice and pick up the rest of the kids. And he'd barely make it to the bus stop. He would have to run. Because we always had chores to do. I had to make up 5 beds every morning and help Mommy cook breakfast. A big breakfast. And I hope most of you know what a big breakfast is. So Jill asked him the other day, asked him while we were there, said, Lee, or Everly, who makes the best chocolate sauce, Doris or Larry? He said, Doris. Right then. I said, do you remember that time when Monica was a baby? They came to the reunion and he was responsible for making the chocolate sauce that morning. He got to play with her. All of a sudden we looked around at the sauce. Well, it was boiling over. That's what little kids do for you. You get interested in them and you forget about everything else. I've got a new little great-grandbaby and oh my goodness. But anyhow, I said,
Is that why you burned the salmon?
you should have told back that when you were up here. But I said, Everly, I said, there's a bunch of us kids. And I said, can you name all of them? He said, I'll try. I said, name them all. Well, I didn't think he could remember any of them. So he said, Louise. I said, no. Jill said, start again, a little bit higher. He said, Junior, Louise, Chev G, me, you, Larry, Toby, Roger, Mike, Tim, Jeff, Kevin. He got everyone. And I thought, he's not going anywhere. he's still got a good mind. And I was so happy that Jill brought me down. I'm so happy for my two daughters that does so much for me and Lowell. Thank God every day for them. And I got a son, he's here, and his wife. And he will probably follow me up here telling something. But the thing that sticks out in my mind was him being able to name 12 kids, all in order. And he remembers all of us being little. And he said, but the most I remember is Larry being bossy. I said, what? He said, every time Mom and Dad go to town, they'd leave you take care of all of us, and said he'd raise his fist, say, see this door, Sam? Smell it. Everything say smell it. We didn't talk like that when we was raised up. He said, smell it. He just had a little tiny muscle. So he'd do like this. Well, there wasn't nothing there hardly, but I knew if he hit me, I'd go to the ground. So I knew better than to fight back. We never were allowed to fight. Oh, did we ever get a whipping when we got home, and Larry got the biggest whipping because he was always the starting of the trouble.
Don't tell all that. You're running Larry funeral.
Oh, yeah, we're gonna get Larry.
But what I remember the most was I was sitting there thinking, there's several in our family that's got a temper. We get it from the Blairs, which was Mommy was a Blair, and we get it from the Breedings. Dad had a temper.
Nah, just,
Both of them. And
just the Blairs.
just the Blairs, no Breedings. But when you got a temper, you can fly off the handle so quick. But at my age, I'll be 80 in August, and I've learned so much. How do I control my temper? And I've still not learned to manage how to control my temper. And I'm married to one that can really set me off sometimes. Say some of the things that would, and then before I think, I've got my teeth gritted. And if I knew that I could knock him down, I would. And at that time, I would be hoping that he wouldn't get up. But
Wait till I die before you drag my name through.
But that's, I always remember Emily being so calm. Always having a good time. And he's dying to get up here and tell somebody.
My two sisters do a lot for Mom and Dad, but I'm the peacemaker of the family, so it's time to keep the peace.
So I just, what I could think of, there's many, many, many more things, but
You're done good.
I just love him still right to this day.
Had to drag mine and Larry's name through the mud.
This is wonderful. I tell you what, I've learned so much today that I did not know about, and I always knew as Everly growing up, and I've heard him called Everly and different names, but I always heard him called Everly. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Terry. Doris, who just spoke, I'm her son, firstborn. My two sisters have already spoke. So I know this is a sad occasion, but what a joy it is to see you all too. And I know that Everly would just be beside himself, knowing that everybody's together here like this. Just one real quick memory. My first memory of Everly, we were living in Middletown, Ohio, and Mom and Dad had moved up to Ohio following Shelby, Jean, and Selden had moved to the Middletown area, Franklin, and Louise and Neil had moved also up to the Dayton area. So all the three sisters were already living in Ohio. I was born down here in Kentucky, but I really never had any early memories, of that. My earliest memories was always in Ohio, okay? And my earliest memory of Everly was, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Toby, Mike, But didn't him and Junior have either a tire shop or a mechanic shop or something in Detroit?
Yeah.
Okay. And that was probably in the early to mid '60s, maybe something like that, I believe.
Probably late sixties.
Was it late '60s? Okay. Well, but it was always a thrill for Louise and Shelby Jean and Mom to talk about Everly's coming. Everly's coming. And he would generally come about one time a year, maybe twice a year, and visit. And it was just such a thrill for the three sisters to have him up there with them. But one of my earliest memories was actually going up to the Detroit area where they had that shop and spending a few days up there. And I can remember that shop vividly. And also what I remember is they had two great big German Shepherd dogs, guard dogs up there. And I can still picture them guard dogs to this day. But I did want to share, just in closing, one real quick thing. When Papa Cole died, I was in the Army, I was in Germany, and I didn't find out about his death until probably about a week later. Mom had written me a letter, and I got upset, why didn't you call me? I would have, I'd have come back. And Dad had said, no, if you tell him, let's just write him a letter. If you tell him, he'll be wanting to come fly home, and he doesn't need to do that, okay? But the reason I'm coming back to Papa Cole is because obviously he was the patriarch of the family, so well loved. But in that time, since 1983, when Papa Cole passed away, Edward Lee was the rock of the family. Right. He was the rock, okay? And he became known as the patriarch. And he took everything over. And he took the entire family underneath his wings. That's the way I view him, anyway. And in closing, here's what I'll say about my last comment about him. Is every time I was around him, he would always ask me what I've been doing, and he would always say, I'm so proud of you. I always take that with me. But also, when you were around Everly, you felt all was right with the world, and nothing can harm me. Nothing can harm me. So, Uncle, we love you dearly. And I posted that on a comment whenever I first found out about his death earlier this week, what a great God-fearing man he was, and how much we loved him deeply. And we sure are going to miss him. And him looking down here today, he would love it to see that everybody's here talking about him and enjoying the memories and the fondness. Terry, thank you for all you do.
Yes. Terry made me think that Ed never said anything bad about anybody. He was never negative. He never put anybody down. I didn't have any confidence when I met him because of the things that I'd been through, nobody cared about my opinion or what I thought, but he always sat and listened and never said a word. And like I said earlier too, he loved my kids like his own. Him and Kathy liked Bud Light. That's what they did on the weekends sometimes. But I don't know, he liked the margaritas. He's just a great man, and he always said, first things first, always do that. Put the more important things first and stuff. And I just hope I did everything right, taking care of him and stuff. And he wondered during this COVID thing why everybody left him. That's the first thing he said to me Monday morning when I got to go visit after it'd been almost a week since he fell. And I tried to tell him about, we couldn't come to see him. We tried and we couldn't because of all this. And he said they never told him about any of that, but he forgot. And then I called Kevin Tuesday night because they were moving him to hospice and he was so bad. And I couldn't wake him up that night when I went, and I talked to him and stuff, and so I got a hold of Kevin and then put it on the Facebook thing that, if you want to come see him, you better come. And the next morning I went in there Wednesday morning and in the hospice unit, and he said, where have you been? And I said, what? And he's talking and stuff, and I said, Ed, you made a liar of me. All the family's coming to see you because now they can come see you. They couldn't see you before, but we could have 2 at a time. And he talked all day long. And lunchtime Wednesday, that was the biggest thing, the most he'd ate. He didn't eat any more the rest of the day, but yeah. So.
He sure did enjoy it.
And then Eric and I left Wednesday night, and the last thing he said to me was, "Come back and get to bed with me," and I said, "I will." And you know, Thursday he was asleep, so that anyway, he was just a wonderful guy, and I loved him. I did. He took good care of us. So okay.
Thank you again, Terry. And again, thank all of you. And is there somebody that was going to have a closing prayer with us before we?
She wanted me to, but I'd like for our eldest brother now.
Okay. I'm not going to make a comment. I don't want to be accused of not knowing who's the oldest or youngest, so you know who you are.
He's Larry.
Larry's going to close us in prayer, and then that'll conclude our service today. And after his prayer, if y'all like, everybody can stand, and we'll just be dismissed quietly, okay?
Let's bow our heads. Lord, we just thank you for this day that you've given us to live and enjoy. Thank you for this opportunity we have to share about our brother. We just thank you, Lord, that he's there with you. You're watching over him. He's there with mom and dad and the rest of the family that knows you. Thank you for this opportunity to share one another, Lord. Thank you for our family. Thank you for the love that we see one another, and that comes from you, Father, because you are love. Lord, I just pray we'll never forget how much Lee has meant to all of us, how he touched all of our lives. And just help us to remember the wonderful things that he done for all of us, the examples he set. But Lord, we just mostly want to thank you for being there for us. Thank you, Jesus, for dying on that cross, that we could come to be with you someday. Lord, just be with us now as we go and have a little food and have fellowship. Just bless everything that's done and said. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen.
Thank you all for coming. Everybody's dismissed at this time.